Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and friends, it's my pleasure now to introduce a very special reception, which is a special reception for a number of reasons. First of all, for the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy, but even more importantly, for the field of cultural diplomacy. You may have noticed on the program, and also behind me, the launch of the Berlin campus of the Babes-Bolyai University. And I'd like to tell you briefly the history of how actually the University of Babes-Bolyai, as well as in particular Professor Vasily Pushkas, were able to actually create an entirely new academic field. As I had mentioned earlier this morning, before the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy and the University of Babes-Bolyai, you couldn't study cultural diplomacy if you wanted to. There were a few classes here and there around the world, but there were no degree programs. And I'm really proud to say that because of actually Professor Pushkas, who we initially got to know, I think, in 2009, a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication, the University of Babes-Bolyai was the first university in the world to actually offer programs in the field of cultural diplomacy, and in doing so, really created a new academic field. So for us, this is actually, I would say, probably the single most important development of the Institute, that really we can do serious contributions, and we have, to the field of academia, to also the field of research in cultural diplomacy. So for many reasons, it's a really important moment for us all. On the one hand, to look back, really since 2009, what we were able to accomplish, and also to look forward at how we really would like to continue to pioneer, to develop the field in a number of ways. To make a long story short, this began, I guess it was November of 2009. We invited Professor Pushkas to come as a keynote speaker to one of our biggest events, the World Without Walls event, which is actually parallel to the fall of the Berlin Wall, always in November. And that was where we really noticed a lot of common interests, and in particular a passion and a dedication amongst Professor Pushkas for cultural diplomacy. I remember initially, I think even on the first visit, we're bouncing around the idea, wouldn't it be great if we could offer something in the field of academia? At that moment, there was a big niche. If you wanted to research cultural diplomacy, hardly any research. If you wanted to learn it, no teaching possibilities. And in terms of programs, of course, also a huge opportunity. So from that small idea, we actually did it. And I really must say it wasn't easy in the sense we had to do a lot of homework. We had to get approval of basically 3 levels of administration. First of all, the University Senate, and there they luckily have a very pioneering rector and a very pioneering University Senate, so I'm very happy he's here as well, Professor Pup. And that was actually the easiest. Then we also had to go through the Ministry of Education in Romania, which took a little bit longer, but actually, relatively speaking, was also pretty efficient. And then there was a separate accrediting body also in Romania that actually also had to give approval and checks. And I'm very happy and proud to say we passed all of those hurdles. And essentially, within about 6 to 12 months, if you put it all together, we're able to establish the first graduate program, which was actually a master's degree in international relations and cultural diplomacy. And since then, it's just grown. Maybe, Marissa, if you can go to the next slide, we can just show some of the excellent programs that we're actually offering with the university. Part of the reason why the rector and Professor Pushkas are here is to actually develop, hopefully, more programs. And that's actually one of the things we'll be discussing in the coming days while they're here. So this is actually the oldest program, as I mentioned, is the MA program in International Relations and Cultural Diplomacy. That's based actually at the Institute for European Studies in Babes-Bolyai. Then also PhD program, International Relations, Cultural Diplomacies. BA program, International Relations, European Studies. MA program in Transatlantic Relations. MA program in Comparative European Political Studies, MA program in Germany in Eastern Europe. And you'll notice part of our strategy is to also make sure we link cultural diplomacy with other fields. Cultural diplomacy still is a relatively new field, so we think it's really beneficial for students to get expertise in actually 2 fields. So the idea behind, let's say, the MA in International Relations and Cultural Diplomacy is that will prepare students for everything that an MA in International Relations will prepare them for, as well as giving them the expertise in cultural diplomacy. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks this morning, cultural diplomacy is a field that's definitely rising in importance, which is something that is, of course, good for us as an institute, and I think hopefully it's good for the world as well, as we see really soft power becoming much more of an attractive option to many governments than hard power. As I mentioned this morning, the German government in the last Steinmeier administration, when he was foreign minister before, increased the budget for cultural diplomacy, so that Germany is spending more in cultural diplomacy than any other kind of diplomacy they have. The Chinese, as I also referred to this morning, started in 2004. It was their first beginning of the Confucius Institute. They now have over 500 around the world, so we're definitely seeing seeing a recognition, not only amongst academia, but also beyond that. And I think that's a very good thing. By essence, soft power and culture diplomacy are constructive, and by essence, hard power, of course, is destructive. So I think no matter who's doing the culture diplomacy, it really can be a very helpful thing to work also towards global peace. So that's why I think in many ways I want to today pay tribute to the past, to what we've been able to establish since 2009, give thanks also to the pioneering and the hard work and the dedication of Professor Puskás and the complete staff of the university, and also to look forward. So as I said, these are actually a handful of programs that we're offering with the university. Hopefully during the visit this week, we can discuss other avenues where we can actually develop more. I think there's a huge potential. For example, international law is one of the fields we've actually seen there's a lot of interest. We did a great conference a few weeks ago, actually in The Hague, at the International Court of Justice, together with really all of the elites of the judiciary. We had the President of the International Court of Justice, the Presidents of the International Criminal Court, fascinating group, and it was really clear there in the Peace Palace in The Hague of the importance of actually bringing international law into the equation, one of the best mechanisms for really implementing human rights and beyond, as well as creative industries, where I think there, if we can do something in those lines, there's really a market for that as well and a need. The basement of this building is actually called the Center for Creative Industries, where we have actually TV studios, recording studios. I'll give you a tour later. And I think in that sense, that would be another field where I think we could really contribute a lot. So we'll see. There are a few things in the pipeline. We'll see what our conversations and meetings bring this week. The other thing that we're celebrating today, the main thing, and maybe you can go back to the other slide, Marissa, is the launch of the Berlin campus of the University of Babes-Bolyai. It took us longer than planned, but finally now here we are in our new building. We officially opened it in August of last year. And we had been waiting for this for a while. Our previous offices, many of you may know, were on Kurfürstendamm, which was a great address right in the center of West Berlin. But we were really at capacity, and we didn't really have much space. So we had actually been planning this launch much earlier before, but practically speaking, we didn't really have the infrastructure. Now we're really happy to have this entire building. So it's 5 floors. The entire second and third floor are dedicated for the Academy for Culture Diplomacy. And we've earmarked, actually, I'll give you both a proper tour also later this evening, the second part of this floor for the University of Babes-Bolyai. So they'll be right here really in the heart of the academy. And I think finally we have a proper infrastructure to really do what we've been planning already for many years right now. So I'm really happy that we can have the occasion here with Professor Puskás, with the rector of the university, Professor Dr. Ilion Pup, here with us for this very special moment, which again, it's a small thing in the sense, just a reception. We want to raise a glass also in a moment with some champagne. We've also prepared a brief video where you can actually see some of the first students from the program who actually graduated. And it's a fascinating example of nation branding as well, I must say. Some of the challenges that we initially had from some of the students, I won't mention any names, although some of them actually are here, is they really didn't know Romania. And for them, the idea of studying in Romania was very exotic. And they heard this in the media, that in the media, and there were many sort of stereotypes actually regarding that. Cluj, even though it's actually one of the most beautiful student cities, I think, in the world, again, is a city not many people had heard of before. Cluj, Transylvania, this and that. So Cluj was also something where we really needed to help raising the awareness. And also Babes-Bolyai University, the most famous, or at least one of the most famous universities in Romania, having a huge impact. I mean, if you go in the Arab world, in Africa, all over Europe, everyone knows the university, and many of them actually are graduates. But there was also really a need to try to bring awareness. So I think the video that we'll show is interesting as well, so you can see actually some of the perspectives of students. What is it like living in Cluj? What is it like at the university? So what I'd love to do now is give a chance maybe for the rector to say a few words, also from his opinion, why is culture diplomacy interesting? Why is this something that the university has really been so passionate about and also so pioneering? And I'd also love it, our founding father, so to speak, Professor Puskás, to also say a few words really from his side. Why did he stick with it in terms of really go through all the challenges, all of the hard work to make this thing happen? And I think the accreditation for the first program was a book almost in terms of paperwork, all of the syllabus, all of the classes. And I'd really love to hear from you as well, looking back, but also looking ahead at where you also see this field developing and hopefully other contributions. The University of Babes-Bolyai from the campus here in Berlin and from Cluj can actually do to hopefully to continue to develop and pioneer the field of culture diplomacy. So maybe if you could give me a hand, I would like to give a very, very warm welcome now for the rector of the University of Babes-Bolyai, Rector Ilion Pup.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, first of all, for the kind invitation to come here. Professor Puskás was already several times here. I'm very happy to see some of our students already. It's an experience in this field of cultural diplomacy, and we are strongly believing that cultural diplomacy could bring peace and could bring a new specialty in this part of Europe, Central Eastern Europe. First of all, I have to tell you some things about our university, which is the oldest and the biggest university in Romania. The city of Cluj is the second largest city in Romania and the capital city of a historical province called Transylvania, but the university is the first one from several points of view. First of all, the university was founded in 1581 as an international university, I would say, from the beginning, because the founder was an Italian Jesuit father called Antonio Possevino, a Catholic. The prince who founded the university was a Hungarian prince, but he was king of Poland, and the record, the document of the foundation was issued in Vilnius, because at that time Vilnius was a part of Polish-Lithuanian Union. So and the language of education was Latin. In our present days, we have 3 official languages of the university: Romanian, Hungarian, and German. And every student is meant to choose the language of education at the beginning of the studies. But the main language of communication in the university is naturally English. And every staff and students are speaking English. So we are very proud of this huge experience. We need to be an open university, an international university, because we have, as every former communist university, a huge handicap. 40 years, for almost 40 years, we were almost isolated. So we need to communicate strongly. And that's why we need a lot of international experiences, starting with conferences and possibilities for our students to participate to internships, including in Berlin, mainly in Berlin, with the help of Institute of Cultural Diplomacy, but also programs, master programs, doctoral programs, exchanges in the field of Erasmus Mundus. And we are very proud of being a part of this important project, which started in 2009. And I had the quality of being among the first professors of this group, and I was so happy to see a lot of young students interested in cultural diplomacy, and they came from several parts of the world, different continents, not only countries. And it was quite a very interesting experience, and I participated to the graduation of this first cohort of students, and I am convinced that the program will function because of this very, very close cooperation. We are very interested in business, and we just started several days ago an MBA with the University of Hull of Great Britain, and the Vice Chancellor was guest of our university, Professor Puskás, as a member of the board of one of the best banks in Romania. We are cooperating very strongly with the business companies. For example, Siemens, Porsche, Emerson are helping the university to organize different programs, mainly in English, but in German too, because of our European heritage and because in Romania, once upon a time, we had a very strong German minority. Mainly in the field of European cooperation and Euro-Atlantic cooperation, the main goal of Romanian foreign policy is the cooperation with the United States in these present days and with our European partners. So that's why the university, it's among the best, I would say even in Europe. I'll give you an example. The best global universities, which is a ranking very, very popular now, our faculty of mathematics, it's on the 81st place in the world, the first university in the former communist, among the former communist universities, except Charles University of Prague. Only Charles University of Prague it's occupying a better position. And that's why in our field of mathematics, informatics, we are very, very happy to cooperate with the business companies mainly. But I am a historian, a specialist in medieval times, and I am teaching even Latin, medieval Latin, and I am very eager to cultivate cultural diplomacy because this field exists since the Egyptian times. And I'm sure that this experience, his huge historical experience, will help younger generation to understand better our present days, our contemporary times. That's why this campus, functioning in this heart of Europe, in Berlin, will be a huge opportunity for our professors, staff, and for our students, and also for international students to come and to know better this other side of Europe, which was for so many years isolated. That's why I am happy to be here and to bring with me an excellent challenge for you and an invitation to come and to be a part of this new Europe, of this new larger Europe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rector Hupp, for those words, and I hope many will take his invitation and actually take the time to come to Cluj and see what wonderful opportunities await you. I would now like to ask you to please help me in giving a very, very warm welcome to the founding father of this program, who I've made reference to a number of times already, Professor Dr. Vasily Pushkas.
Thank you very much. Mike wanted to say that I'm the oldest man here. Thank you very much to my friends and my colleagues and my very young colleagues, because I see here and our graduates for first cohort, how my rector mentioned before. I would like to say that we began to work together in 2009. A long time ago. Please believe me that in 5-6 years ago, cultural diplomacy changed a lot. If you read about American cultural diplomacy, or about French cultural diplomacy, or, I don't know, Chinese cultural diplomacy, you'll see that in the last period of time, both concepts and methods were changed. Why? Because since the end of the Cold War, because of globalization, because of the new approach of international relations, states, governments practiced so-called integrative diplomacy. And integrative diplomacy means, first of all, a new diplomat, a new professional diplomat, being able to practice in the same time economic and commercial diplomacy, political diplomacy, and cultural diplomacy. Integrative diplomacy, I'm sure, is the future of diplomacy and is the future of the new type of international relations and foreign policies. But not only states, not only governments are involved in cultural diplomacy. A couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we have discussed here about corporate cultural diplomacy. Not corporate diplomacy, corporate cultural diplomacy. And if you'll be interested, what kind of curricula have business schools which are training managers for corporations, you'll see a large part of a discipline of management, doing with cultural diplomacy. not only about knowledge regarding the place, the country, or the region where a corporate operates, but in the same time, they have to learn how to communicate in the region with new cultures and how to be able to bring together resources, not only financial resources, but human resources. And I'll mention perhaps one more thing. It's a very welcome forum or very welcome topic of debate this time about nation branding. We have to communicate every day, but we are communicating globally, internationally. We are a new people now. We are very, very interested and to learn about other experiences from Latin America, Africa, Asia, Europe, America, but in the same time, we want to transmit our ideas, opinions, and messages. And for that, we need, partners. How you can reach such partnership relations? Just in or only developing cultural diplomacy and this intercultural communication, international intercultural communication. That's why I think that this area of cultural diplomacy must be deeply professionalized, and for this reason, University of Cluj, yes, perhaps it was first in Europe and I don't know in other part of the world, which started a program of cultural diplomacy, MA program in cultural diplomacy. Why MA program and PhD programs? Because we want through MA to professionalize, and we have through PhD programs to specialize people in cultural diplomacy. And I think that it was not only a very inspiring, but very welcome moment to develop such program. It was a chance. We were fortunate having of our university, Professor Pope. He said he's a historian of medieval time, but he's a practitioner of cultural diplomacy. He was director of Romanian Cultural Center in New York, and he was director for a couple of times of Cultural Institute of Romania in Venezia, in Italy. He's perhaps one of the most experienced in Romania in practicing cultural diplomacy. That's why he understood immediately our proposals when Mark and myself came with such, idea, such project, and we're grateful to Rector Pop because he did agree, and he is supported and is still supporting our program on cultural diplomacy. I encourage you to take this case of cultural diplomacy not only as an intellectual approach, not only as a cultural approach, not only diplomatically, if you want to learn diplomacy. But first of all, you'll be able to be the best communicator of the world. Because if we want peace, as Professor Pope mentioned, if you want truly the peace, we want to learn how to communicate culturally and interculturally. If we'll do that, I'm sure that we'll be successful in a couple of years to send a different message to the world. And I want once again to thank to our friends and colleagues from ICD, because from this heart of Europe, as Professor Pope mentioned, came in Transylvania not to meet Dracula, but to meet very, very professional and very distinguished scholars, which are dedicated to both this area of cultural diplomacy, but in the same time they are dedicated to an innovative approach of diplomacy and of sciences. I wish you all to come together with ICD in Cluj, and please believe me that you'll see not only a very famous university, but very nice people, which are in the same time are communicated in 3-4 languages, and they are practicing their education and their cultural events in their languages and in their spirit. And you'll see that this university is not only the best one in Romania, but the best place to learn cultural diplomacy. Thank you very much, and I look forward to see you there.
No, thank you very much, Professor Puskás. You mentioned a few words about the bio of Professor Popp, but you didn't mention a few words about your own bio. For those of you who don't know, Professor Puskás is famous for many things, but I think one of the most important contributions he did was as serving as European Minister for Romania, where he was actually the chief negotiator to negotiate Romania entering the EU. So as a small thing he did in his free time, as well as also being one of the most famous professors from the university. But I think that really gives also great expertise. You wanted to? Okay.
If you did mention my secrets.
Okay.
Yes, I am very happy that I had the chance in my life to be a Romanian negotiator for the accession of Romania to EU. And I'm very happy that I succeeded to conclude negotiation and to have a treaty of the accession treaty. But the European Union, from the point of view of decisional process, is one of the most conservative. I'm sure that you are familiar. Why? Because there are 28 countries. There is, interinstitutional relationships inside the Brussels. But recently, the European Commission decided to develop a very, very important program of cultural diplomacy. And I want to mention that because even this conservative body from Brussels decided for cultural diplomacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Puskás. Another wise decision they made was this year actually electing Cluj as the European Capital City of Youth, the year of 2015. So it's another special honor also that has been given to the city. But I'd like to now ask my colleague to help us. We'll show a brief video to give you a glimpse of the university and also Cluj, as well as actually a chance to get to know some of the staff and administration of the university and some of the students. So, brief introductory video.
My name is Kate Russell, and I'm from the United States.
My name is Rahma Malik Salom.
My name is Koen Welling.
My name is Lena. I'm originally from Ireland.
My name is Serjan Arbash. I am from Turkey.
My name is Abdeslam Badre. I'm originally from Morocco, but I live in Berlin. Right now, I live in Cluj.
The mission of this university, it's first of all a cultural and educational mission, but we are among the best universities focused on research in this country. So our mission is a general scientific and cultural one.
The Faculty of European Studies within Babes-Bolyai University was created 20 years ago with the support of the European Commission, the prestigious European universities, Münster University, Strasbourg University, Utrecht University, Nottingham University, Université Libre de Bruxelles, two Italian universities, Cattolica and Statale in Milan, and so on.
I'm a master's student here. This program is actually a collaboration between the Institute of Cultural Diplomacy and Babes-Bolyai University.
Last year, my faculty initiated an international master degree in cultural diplomacy in partnership with the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy of Berlin.
Practically, this is the first program that offers a specialization in cultural diplomacy, and we are lucky to have as partner the Institute of Cultural Diplomacy from Berlin.
ICD classes were like more hands-on practice. 70% of the things we did at ICD were more professional development and practical things. Here we take I would say like more of a theory, but theory in a very interactive, dynamic way.
And I think it is quite great. The part in Berlin was actually education plus internship for us, and we had the opportunity to experience this NGO.
I'm very happy to be in this program because this program has been offering very interesting courses.
We learned a lot, and now we have a lot of knowledge about cultural diplomacy. The second part was going to spend here in Babes-Bolyai University in Faculty of European Studies.
The classes we're taking, they are just an extension to what we took at ICD.
Which is actually very great. We have the best teachers ever, I can say. We have European Union negotiators and so on.
Going to the classes, I realized that my professors were not only awesome, but also professional, very flexible. They have deep knowledge about cultural diplomacy.
We have been learning about cultural diplomacy, and it is very important subject in the international law, in the international world today.
The field of cultural diplomacy gives new opportunities for students at Babes-Bolyai University.
I think that cultural diplomacy it's a very important topic today, especially because the classic way of doing diplomacy and politics is changed.
We are learning about the soft power, how you can apply soft power instead of hard power when we come to the international issues. I mean, the world has moved from the period of using hard power, and now we have to use soft power.
Cluj is one of the multicultural cities from Romania, so here we have a tradition in managing, if I may say, the cultural diversity. Also, now there is a competition for Cluj to become a youth cultural capital of Europe.
Given the fact that this area of the world has been through like different phases of history, and it was at some time in history like the center of the decision-making of European history. We are in the heart of Transylvania. We are the heart of culture, of literature, of arts.
My interest in cultural diplomacy, I'm really focusing on the film aspect of cultural diplomacy. So, in my opinion, I think film was the best kind of vehicle or way to conduct cultural diplomacy between all the arts, connecting it to music, theater, like sculptures, paintings, and everything. I think film is, in my opinion, just the best way to do it.
I really enjoy life in Cluj so far. It's loads of fun. It's a really big student city. I think 100,000 students. so there's always something to do, there's always new places to go out.
You can basically do everything. So they have all kind of sports, from swimming to squash to horse riding.
Enjoyable city, and I really like this city, and I really enjoy the time that I'm spending here.
People here are really awesome, very helpful, very nice, very warm. They remind me of people in my home country.
It's really easy to meet people, it's really easy to get along with people. The Romanians are always willing to lend a hand, and luckily everyone speaks English, so far there hasn't been any language barrier.
It will not take you even a day to feel you're already home.
The city was amazing, tons of people, really lively, beautiful streets, beautiful scenery around, so it's really cool.
Maybe to say it in one sentence, you never get bored in Cluj. That's the thing. Yeah.